You need to be a retention master if you're wanting to grow a profitable, successful, highly cash flowing martial arts school. Simple as that. Okay, you can have the best, most exciting syllabus curriculum ever. You might do ball breaking every single lesson. You might have the fanciest facility going, but if you haven't mastered retention, you're just going to have a massive churn like most of the small other clubs will have. So you, as a driver, as the entrepreneur, as a business owner, if you're serious, need to continually understand and improve retention. So first of all, what is retention? So retention is obviously how many students you're retaining each week, each month, and each year. So a bad situation will be on the 1st of January, you have 100 active students. And then on the 31st of December, or again, 1st of January the following year, you've still got 100 students, but you've enrolled students throughout that process. Or even worse would be, I suppose, a worse situation would be you've got 100 and then you've got somewhere less than 100 12 months down the line. Now, again, to go a little bit deeper into that, that could be amazing if your students are now paying two, three, four times more than they were on the first of the month. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked there. So retention is one of the key metrics, one of the key drivers of your business. So if you've invested in my book, I'll just give it a little mention now, How to Build a Highly Profitable Martial Arts School by me, Dervish Dervish. There's several chapters in there. I've obviously, told the readers lots of my tips and strategies on how I built a cash flowing profitable martial arts school that generated between £30,000 and £35,000 per calendar month. That's a single school. It's not a chain of schools. I didn't want a chain of schools. It was just one single operating school with a good team, very, very systemized, and it was a nice little cash machine each and every week, each and every month. But retention. So retention there is how many students you keep in hold of, over the course of a week, a month, and a year, and so on. Now, there are many strategies that you can implement to help in your retention, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to your relationship with each and every student, or your team's relationship with each and every student. Do you treat them just as like another number? Do you treat them just as another brick in the wall? Or do you and or your team go above and beyond? Do you know their names each and every time? Because sometimes people can get to brown, I'd hate to say black belt, brown belt, and the instructor's still scrambling around to find out, what the child's name is. Definitely not. You need to make sure that, yes, you know the names, ideally the parents or the parent support network's names, what they do as a job, which school they go to, what other activities they do, who might be poorly at the moment, who's graduating university, who's having driving lessons at the moment, who's doing the GCSEs at the moment, who's going for A levels, are they moving house, are they moving job? Things that, I suppose friends would know about each other really. So retention then, if you're wanting to work it out and you haven't worked it out, again, I mentioned this a lot in my book, it's really easy. So if you've got an active count of 100 students and at the end of the month you've lost 10, okay, again, just let's do it for easy maths, which is horrendous, by the way. If you've got 100 students and at the end of the month you've lost 10, so then it's 10 divided by 100, so 10% your retention or dropout rate is. And now you think to yourself, now in a 10-month period, if you had a 10% dropout in a 10-month period, your school is just completely turning over. It's just completely doing that all the time. So your job as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, is to reduce your retention. Some people call it churn, but retention is a much better term. To reduce your retention and bring it down to as low as possible. At our height, I think we're about 2.2, 2.6%. At our worst, it was before we started to track it really, it must have been about 8 or 9%. We found out, I think it was about in 2015, 16, that 51% of our school, sorry, 51% of our members were staying less than 6 months, which is absolutely horrendous. You'd be spending hundreds of thousands getting them through the door, marketing, they'd enroll, then they're gone, within 4 or 5 months. And that's no way to run a profitable business. So, yeah, things that you could do to improve your retention. Again, I mentioned it before, but definitely have a good rapport with each and every family. Are you awarding them, if deserved, just little A5 certificates after the lesson? I'm not talking participation certificates here. I'm talking if you've got a class of 20, then maybe one or two, whatever system you bring in, 1 in 10 gets a certificate for best discipline, best focus, best effort, best respects, something like that. Are you doing, I mentioned this in my book as well, self-discipline medals, self-discipline trophies and so on at graduations for things that they've done outside of their schoolwork? Are they getting certificates for if they're bringing in a letter from a teacher or a certificate they've achieved at school about excellent behaviour and so on? What else? Are you writing awesome letters at the end of the night to, again, another one or two students who really stood out that lesson? Are you making, when they first enrolled, welcome calls? Again, when they're enrolled for the first 3 months, are you making regular calls each week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, and so on? Are you having regular parent student conferences where it might be a one-on-one, once a month, just to check that they're still settling in, just to check that they're right on the journey, and if they've got any questions? Are you writing happy birthday cards, which is signed by you and obviously all of the team? I'm not talking rubbish electronic ones here, or rubbish electronic, you know, email ones. Definitely none of that nonsense. Are you making happy birthday phone calls? The list goes on what you can do to improve your retention. Now, again, I mentioned this a lot in all of my videos. There are only two main drivers to improve your business, or two main things that you need to do. Number one, attract a client. In our situation now, it's attract a student. Number two, keep them forever. That's it. So attract a student. Two, keep them forever. If you can master those two things, your gross, and we'll just go like that, definitely, your cash flow and profits will increase. So just to recap then, if you haven't invested in my book, please do so. How to Build a Highly Profitable Martial Arts School by me, Dervish. And, retention, the main thing is to show them that you care about them. Spend a few minutes with them before the lesson, maybe spend a few minutes with them after the lesson, helping them out. It can't be the same student each and every time, because that'll look then to other parents that you've got particular favourite. That's not the case. If they're paying for private lessons, then that's a different situation. But be willing to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes with a student, or maybe a couple of students, especially if they're the same grade or learning the same technique, before or after a lesson, if you can do that. If not, then maybe one of your brown or black belts. Happy birthday cards, happy birthday phone calls, little A5 certificates at the end of the class. Again, if you've had a look at my book, it could be a good job, star of the class, excellent potential, best beginner, anything like that. During your graduations, which will be held ideally every 2 months, belt tests and so on, are you awarding them extra certificates for, yes, of course, attendance, punctuality, should I say, and attitude, but self-discipline medals, self-discipline medals, self-discipline trophies. There's so many things that you can do to look after your students. What you should never do is enroll them, throw them over the wall, then move on to your next lead or next inquiry, because that's a horrible feeling. They feel like you've been all nice and nice until you've given them the credit card or your debit card, or they've paid you cash. Then you've gone, right, throw them over, and then you move on to the next one. That's definitely not what you want. Okay, look after your students. But again, it's dependent on you and how successful and how profitable you want your martial arts school to be. So good luck, everybody. Last mention, if you haven't already done so, spend, I think it's about £12 down, purchase my book, How to Build a Highly Profitable Martial Arts School. You'll find lots of things in there, trust me. And if you're serious, again, get in touch. I help other business owners, martial arts school owners, and property investors grow their knowledge, cash flow, and wealth. I'm sure I can help you. Just get in touch. All the best, everybody. Take care.